All right, welcome back to the shop. Now, Nova looks pretty good cleaned up. It's got glass in it finally, pretty close to getting to the drag strip. I've got to put my safety harness in it and a drive shaft loop and then a couple of little small things, neutral safety switch for the shifter, stuff like that. Now, a while back I did the alignment. You guys saw the video on that. If not, you can check it out, link at the top. And my alignment was barely within spec as far as the camber goes. The caster was okay. Not as much caster as I wanted, but I couldn't give any more caster because then it would have negative camber. So what I decided to do was lower the car a little bit. The springs that are in the front of the car now are stock style springs, and they're just like mood replacement springs for a small block car. I used to have these in my 73. It's stuff I had laying around, and I put them in here, and I'm not real happy with how high it sits. Now, it doesn't look bad, but I prefer it just a tad bit lower, and the biggest problem is I don't have much adjustment in my alignment. So instead of ordering some like Moroso trick springs or cutting anything out of these, or putting a different 6-cylinder spring or something like that in there, I decided I'm going to go with some coilover shocks. Okay, so I'm going to be installing QA1 single adjustable coilover shocks. The springs are a 400 inch-pound spring rate, which means they compress 1 inch for every 400 pounds. Now, these are going to give me a lot more adjustability as far as ride height. The shock's adjustable itself, and that's going to let me lower the car an inch or two, get more adjustment in my alignment with my control arms. So that'll help out that a lot. I'll put a link in the description to these shocks. It's a kit, comes with 2 shocks, 2 springs, all the hardware. Now, if you're going to do street driving, autocross, anything like that, you want to go probably with a little bit stiffer spring rate. You can call QA1 or look at their website and they'll guide you in that thing. But for a street car or a street strip car, I think 400 inch-pounds will work pretty good. Now let's get started putting these in. Okay, so now it's time for the dangerous part. Here's what we're going to do. I've got the jack under the control arm. I'm going to loosen the nut up a little bit, probably till I've got, half the nut in threads. And then I'm going to lower the jack a little bit. I'm going to hit the spindle right here with a big hammer, and then it's going to release the ball joint from the spindle. The spring pressure is going to push it down. It's going to slam the nut into the spindle. It's going to hit the jack or the nut first. I'm not sure which. Depends on how far I let the jack down. Then what I'll do is I'll jack it back up, take a little bit of pressure off the nut, take the nut all the way off, lower the jack down, and hopefully the control arm and spring, all the tension will go away if I've got the car up high enough. So we're going to do that. You can also use a pickle fork to separate it. Just make sure that if you're going to hit it with a hammer, you don't screw up your threads on your knuckle, steering knuckle right here, and you leave the nut on the ball joint for 2 reasons. 1, not to mess up the threads. 2, if this thing shoots out all of a sudden, the car can jump and all kind of scary stuff. So you just want to leave it on there, make sure you don't screw up. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this good or not, but one thing I had to do was when I was trying to put the shock up in there and get the nut and the washer and the grommet stuff on it, there was not enough thread sticking up. I couldn't get the shock to push up far enough to get the bushing on it. So I just put the washer and the nut on there to hold it up. And now that I've got the bottom of it bolted in, the control arm and the ball joint nut and all put together, I can take this off because it has no pressure on it. And hopefully there's enough thread sticking up now to put my bushing on the top. Maybe. Yeah, just enough. There. So if you're doing this, just try not to fight with it too much. You got to make sure you've got the spring pigtail in the pocket over here. And I put it up in there, got it hanging so it'd stay first. And then I looked up in there and I turned the spring until the top of the pigtail was over in the relief pocket here. And then I just, put everything together, jacked it up. I'm going to check that pocket again in just a second, make sure it's still lined up. And then I can finish putting it together. Okay, we got the passenger side done. Now I'm going to jump on the driver's side and I'm going to let it down and see where we're at. Now I've got the shocks adjusted at their tallest setting, so the spring is not compressed at all. Maybe just a little bit, but not really with the adjuster. The adjuster is at the very bottom. So we're going to set it down, see where it sits, and then go from there with the adjustment. Okay, so this is obviously too low. Now, I misspoke a few minutes ago when I said that I had the springs at max extension. Well, the springs are at max extension, which is also the lowest point for the car. Once I bring the adjuster up a couple inches, it should raise the car up a few inches, and all will be right. I hope. Let's find out. Now, one thing you need when you do this is the special tools for adjusting the springs, or the spring height. These do not come with it. You have to buy these separate. So make sure if you do that, and I'll put a set of these in the description with the springs if you want to click that link. If not, no biggie. Now, I'm going to jack it back up, take the pressure off. I'm going to raise each spring adjuster up the same amount, and hopefully I'll get it right the first try because I hate doing this thing 2 or 3 times. Okay, I've got it adjusted. I went up about 1 inch with the spring adjuster. So now we're going to let it down and see where we end up. And hopefully I don't have to adjust it again because it's kind of a pain. Okay, that's still a bit too low. I got to come up another inch. Okay, one more adjustment. That looks pretty good. All right, that wasn't too bad. Now, it's probably still a little bit too low for my taste. I want it up a little bit more. I've got plenty of adjustment left, but I'm tired and it's late and it's hot and I'm sweaty and I'm done. So anyway, these are the 400 inch-pound spring rate. I'm going to also put a link for the 450s in there. They would not sit as low with the same adjustment on them because they don't compress as much with as much weight. So it would probably be a pretty good idea to call QA1 or look on the website, kind of figure out what you've got. I've got a small block with aluminum heads on it, and everything else is steel. The hood's steel, everything else is steel. So that's where this sits, and I've got it up about 1.25 inches from the bottom on each shock. The spring is adjusted about 1.25 inches from the lowest setting, so it's raised up that far. I'll probably go up a little bit more, but for right now, this is really good. I've got to change the wheel studs to longer ones, safety loop for the drive shaft, put my harness in, and a neutral safety switch, and this thing can go to the drag strip. Now, like I said, I like it as I still got to do an alignment, but you know that's not that big a deal. And time-wise, this took me. I started at 8 o'clock, and it's 10:30, and I had a solid half hour of adjusting the shocks. So about 2 hours, and that's with me filming. So that does slow you down a little bit because you're constantly turning the camera on and off, moving it around, make sure you don't have a booger, stuff like that. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Check out my other stuff. Leave me a like, leave me a comment, and we'll see you next time.